So, after going to the theater to see Black Phone 2, I have to say, guys, this film almost had me. But I think it fell just short of what I would consider to be a satisfactory movie watching experience. I thought the story was overly contrived, even though the writers spent a lot of time trying to convince us that this was a natural evolution of the story we were told in the first film. But the first film I found to be deeply flawed from a narrative standpoint, so that issue is simply compounded here. The plot plods along in rather tedious fashion, vacillating between Gwen's dreams and reality as we jump between the past and the even more distant past with disconnected phones that simply will not stop ringing annoyingly throughout. And speaking of Gwen, the main characters are all back for this one, that being her family. So casting was kind of preordained in this one. And again, seeing as how the two main characters in the first film were child actors who are now a bit older and a bit more seasoned, the acting here is a bit better than it was in the previous film. The small writing here was a bit maddening, especially Gwen's dialogue. But I tried to remind myself that the main characters in this movie are kids. Older kids now, but still kids nonetheless. And so they talk like kids. And to add a little more pepper than might be desired by most, because of the story's timeline, they talk like kids from the 80s in 2025. Now, I thought the directing was just okay, though I didn't really appreciate the aesthetic used to convey Gwen's dream state or the frequency with which it occupied the film. But it's not unlike the aesthetic used in the original film, and given that Scott Derrickson directed both of these movies, I guess it's a continuity situation, which I guess makes it the correct choice, technically speaking. Now, overall, I'd give this film a 75%, or a 7.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. A C+ for a letter grade. Look, this film is not as unsettling as the first film, probably because in the first film, the grabber was a flesh and blood serial killer who had kidnapped Finney, planning to kill him. Here, he's basically become the figment of the main character's imagination, reminiscent of a certain someone who used to terrorize the children of Springwood, Ohio in the mid to late 80s. I say all of that to say that while I applaud the film for its thematic prowess, using the horror of child abduction to explore resilience in the face of trauma as well as the power of family and connection, I ultimately found this film too derivative, and not even of the previous film, but of another much too prominent classic horror story. I was also much too annoyed by the phone. That said, if you like the first film, you'll probably like this one as well, though another one of these films might be the one that officially jumps the shark.